Welcome to SandCity Sports. I am your host, the Cape Cod Kid, and we're back again to bring you all the sports and current events news stories that you need to know. We're very happy to be joined today by Drew Popolo in the building, and we're more happy, well, equally happy, I'm going to say equally happy to be here at the Cape Cod Media Center, and we want to give a shout out to Mr. Angel Robinson for helping put this whole thing together, produce this show. Now, we got to get right to it. Drew is not only a lifelong Celtics fan, okay, but he's one of the Celtics faithful. I can't express the energy that he brings to the Celtics games that he attends. Many times he's in the building.
Always. Season ticket holder, baby.
Bringing the energy from the nosebleeds and courtside.
All
Both,
over.
Okay, you're not just, you know what I mean? And we had a Celtics season that ended precariously, and so we have to talk about that. So the Boston Celtics lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in a gentleman's sweep. I want to know your thoughts on that.
I would say it's a huge disappointment, obviously. Going into the season, you know, we had the highest of hopes. If you look at the team on paper, there's no reason that we couldn't have beat even the Warriors, honestly, anybody. On paper, that team could have beat anybody, but the game isn't played on paper.
True.
And they came out, they looked like shit towards the end.
Okay, yeah, you know.
Towards the end.
You win the first game.
I mean, you win the first game, everyone thought, oh, Paul Pierce comes out, oh, it's over.
Celtics in 5.
I mean, that was
Celtics
such a childish comment by Paul Pierce. I love Paul Pierce, of course, as a Celtic.
True.
But, I mean, you know that it's one game at a time. I don't know why he would say such a thing, but it looked great after one game. And then they started to fold, you know, no resiliency at all from them.
Now, is that something that we only saw, in your opinion, in the playoffs, or did we see a lack of continuity and resiliency? I mean, because again, you were there. You know, some people we watch on Sports Center, some people, you know, we catch a highlight here and there. You're in the building, going to these games. Do we see a lack of resiliency from this team throughout the season?
Absolutely. I'm obviously a big Celtics fan, but I'm a big betting on the Celtics fan as well.
Yes.
And the year before, with a less talented team, any game I was at, I would live bet them. They're down 10, they're down 12, they're down 20. Throw $50 on them, whatever.
Okay.
Whatever. Usually, last year, that thing would come through a decent amount of the time with a nice profit.
Right.
This year, I still do it every time.
Believing?
I think I maybe hit one that they came back. They had no resiliency. If they were losing, you maybe saw 1 or 2, maybe 3 games where they would come back and actually put up a fight and finish the game and win a game. When they were down in the fourth, they croaked almost every time. It was no resiliency at all. Way less, more talent on paper than last year's team, but way less toughness and grittiness. They had no heart, honestly.
Had no heart. I remember Larry Bird made that statement in the midst of an NBA Finals against the Lakers after the Celtics got mollywopped by 20, 30 plus. And I recall that Celtics team, this might have been in 86. No, it wouldn't be in 86 because I was against the Rockets. This would be 84, coming all the way back to win the series.
Yep.
You know, when your leader says that you have no heart. But the Celtics clearly didn't turn things around and weren't able to roll with the punches. Next up, so if that's the case, what are the reasons, in your opinion, that the Celtics, that this culture is not as robust? Because again, you see, 1 year ago, you know, the Celtics could roll with the punches. The Celtics had more fight. The Celtics had more tenacity. A year later, with additional talent, additional pieces, supposedly, you know, you add more to something that's already good. You know, it's supposed to be moving to being great. But this was a situation where more actually was less. You know, so why was that the case in your opinion?
I think the court's only so big, and there's so many egos and so many skill sets. The court was too small for that team, that the egos, the talent, whatever. Sometimes less is more.
Okay.
And everyone wanted theirs, and if they had really all, I don't think that they were fully invested, everyone 100% on team basketball. If you looked at the Indiana series, you kind of saw flourishes of it where, they're all moving the rock,
Yes.
high percentage looks here, there.
Yeah.
Then against Milwaukee, Brad Stevens, great game plan for game one.
Game one, outstanding.
Game two, things start to go wrong, and they all just fell apart. It's me ball, it's this and that, and honestly,
Quickly about game two now. Chris Middleton did shoot 7 for 10 from the three-point line.
yeah.
Milwaukee did shoot 42% as a team overall, and so that was a bounce-back game. The Celtics, and again, the third quarter really dictated who won
Bad third
each game
quarter
throughout the entire series. So this game two was competitive, but you got a lights-out performance. I think Chris Middleton went for 28, 29 points.
Oh, he crushed
and
it.
particularly 7 for 10 from the three-point line, which improved Milwaukee's overall average. Milwaukee's a team that shoots 38 to 43s a game.
Oh, yeah.
So game two, for me, that was a game where it was a bounce-back game for Milwaukee. And the Celtics, if a team is just going to make drive and kick threes, drive and kick contested threes, you can't really do anything about it. Games three and particularly games four are instances where the Milwaukee didn't necessarily play as well as a team, but the Celtics, for some reason, just your thoughts on that.
I mean, if you took one in Milwaukee, that's all that you had to do. You come home.
Indeed.
You got 2 games at home.
2?
Not any home. You're in the Garden.
You're in the, true.
That's the best home
Okay.
in terms of, in my opinion. I mean, I'm biased, but
So the Boston is known as Title Town.
it's Title Town. But the Garden is notoriously a tough place to play as a opponent.
As a venue. Boston
Yeah,
voted number
for
one.
sure.
Boston voted number one sports city in America.
Absolutely,
Year in
for
and
good
year
reason.
out.
For good reason.
Indeed.
It's a tough. I'm one of those fans,
And
and
you-
I'm not going to
and-
make it any easy for you. I got people in
Exactly.
front of me. They hate me, and they're Celtics fans. They hate being whatever.
Because of
But
the energy, the consistent energy.
if you're at the line, I'm going to boo you until I can't talk. And if you've heard me at work the next day,
You and
can-
30, 40,000 other,
and
rabid
as long
fans.
as I get it started or somebody gets it started, it's power numbers. That's the whole game.
Indeed.
And you can't drop 2 at home. They played all right, but at times it was one thing doesn't go their way and they start to panic and one thing leads to another, and that's just how it goes, and that's what happened.
Okay, so one thing leads to another, and we start to panic. I was under the impression that a Brad Stevens-led team doesn't panic. The Brad Stevens-led team that
Not
I
this
saw
year.
last year against Philadelphia,
Seriously.
who had 2 emerging stars, possible All-NBA candidates, and the Celtics were out there 2 All-Stars.
Yeah.
That Celtics team, I believe that was a gentleman's sweep, or they won in 6 games.
I think it was.
They beat the Sixers, who were much more talented on paper and then on the
Yeah.
court in 5 or 6 games. With Brad Stevens' outstanding out-of-bounds plays and their continuity.
He won a couple games off his coaching alone. That's
Period.
This year, he took a step back, as did almost everyone, including Danny Ainge, honestly.
We're going to get to that because that's something that
Yeah.
I really want to touch on. But
Yep,
keeping
yep,
it
yep.
On the court, so if Brad Stevens is responsible for the Celtics panicking, what culpability does their self-described leader, most important player, allegedly, Kyrie Irving, how much is he responsible for this panic, this lack of continuity, this disconnectedness, this, if to use a baseball analogy, 25 guys, 25 cabs, how much is Kyrie responsible for the Celtics losing culture, basically?
He's a huge part. I defended him all year long. The media, this and that. I was like, you know what? They keep asking him the same question. What do you want from the guy? He gives them an answer that they don't want. Whatever.
Okay.
This is Boston.
Okay.
But, I mean, Brad Stevens, maybe. I'm not in there. I'm not in the huddle. But Brad Stevens probably was calling some plays, this and that. And maybe Kyrie held the ball a little too long and tried to do his own thing. I mean, he's one of the most gifted players I've ever seen. I was at plenty of the games. I saw him do stuff that I was just like, unbelievable.
Offensively,
But
juggernaut.
yeah, but in some of those games, especially in games 3 and 4, I could see him. He wasn't like he's just hucking stuff up. He's not finishing. Like he's not leaving it here. He's putting it here. I don't know if it's all on him, but I think Brad Stevens is to blame. I think that Kyrie absolutely is to blame. They asked him after game 3, what do you think about you shot the ball 20
I think it was
2 times,
28,
whatever.
28, 29 shot, or it might have been 22.
I think it was 22 in the first one. He's like, oh, I should have shot it.
Should have shot there. I think
30.
you're right. Yes.
And it's like, okay, you go out and say that, and then you have an even worse statistical game the next game.
Indeed.
Either, if you're going to talk the talk, walk it. And he didn't walk the walk. And if he's this big, he's an assassin, like everyone says, he can be, but he didn't show it, and he needs to take some serious blame for that.
Okay, now we did have another Celtic come out yesterday and voice his opinions all over. Sports media did the whole ESPN stay for the day deal, Mr. Terry Rozier, and he expressed what a lot of us can really see, on the surface, but he gave us the behind-the-scenes look. So now, how would you, what factor does that play? So we expect leadership from an allegedly up-and-coming coach like Brad Stevens. We expect leadership from an NBA champion, Kyrie Irving. But when you're getting to know and understand that the rank-and-file members were up in arms, and mutinying in various ways, how does that now impact your, the picture of this season?
I don't think that, going off what Terry Rozier said, I think everyone had a feeling that it was kind of some animosity in the locker room, and there was, like I said before, there's so many egos in minutes that everybody wanted. There was so much talent that everybody wanted their piece, and that's not how a team works. Come in, play your role, and hopefully you win a championship. That's the goal. But I think that Terry Rozier, he's all complaining about I want mine and this and that. I don't think, one, that helps his free agent value at all, talking that talk.
Okay.
But two, I think that that's just the way the season goes sometimes. You're not going to get all the minutes you want. You're not going to get the opportunities you want. Make the best of them for the team. And he didn't do that either. I was at plenty of games, saw plenty of games on TV, at the games. Yep. He's coming down, bricking threes in 20 seconds into the shot clock. It's not like he had a great year. So if he's throwing stones, everyone should be held accountable. They should all be quiet and figure out what went wrong, do what's best for your career, whatever. But he's coming out throwing stones at everyone. It's not like he had a great year.
True.
Really. So I don't know. I think that he's coming out and trying to act like it's not his fault. It's everyone's fault. All of them are equally to blame. And so this absolutely disappointing season from everybody because they didn't go as far as they were supposed to.
Okay. And, you're somebody that lives it. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. You're in the building, from Cape Cod to Beantown consistently throughout the course of the year, putting your own dollars and cents down, behind the team. And I feel that a lot of the green teamers, if you will, feel the same way.
Absolutely.
And a lot of good points. Now, my own takes on those questions is I give the majority of the blame to Brad Stevens. In terms of, I thought the rotation this year was atrocious. You can't, nice guys finish last. Nice guys finish last. And I felt that Brad Stevens, with his rotation, you can chime in anytime you want, tried to please too many people. Okay, basketball, to me, I look at it as like running a marathon or running any sort of distance. Okay, you can't run, if you're going to run a marathon, you don't run 13 miles. Okay, and then sit down, for 30, 45 minutes, have a coffee culotta or whatever it is that you drink, okay, and then get up and try to run another 13 miles. You have to stay in a rhythm, okay? So I despise this strategy and this substitution pattern of playing guys for 5 or 6 minutes, and then they have to sit for 6 to 8 minutes, and then putting them back in the game. And I thought that's what the Celtics rotation looked like for the majority of the year, and I thought that was a number one factor in guys not getting into a rhythm, guys being unhappy, and overall them not winning games. You weren't getting the max production with those minutes from guys night in and night out, and it's because they couldn't get into a rhythm, and it's particularly harder. It's much more difficult if you are a top 3 pick to accept that type of situation. If you're a Jason Tatum and you had a breakout year the year before and you're ready now to cement yourself as a possible all-star in the NBA and the leader of a very talented sophomore class, okay, you can't be playing 4 minutes or 5 minutes more than Semi Ojeleye. Okay, the numbers. I think your starters or your top 7 guys, like you saw in the play, need to be playing 30 to 35 minutes a game, and I blame Brad Stevens principally for that. Okay, for not making those decisive decisions. Now Terry Rozier was a little bit upset. Okay, but if anything, I'm less concerned about Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart being upset than I am about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Gordon Hayward. Okay, Gordon Hayward's clearly an all-star, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are top 3 picks. Okay, if I have to choose,
and they will be all-stars.
Who's going to be angry? Terry Rozier, you can be angry all day and all night.
You can leave because
you can leave.
No one expected him to come back anyways this year.
Okay,
he wants to be the man somewhere. Right. He could be a starting point guard on a bad team.
Yeah, on the Miami Heat.
Do we want to win a championship?
Okay, he could be the starting point guard on the Cleveland Cavaliers. He could be the starting point guard on the Phoenix Suns. Okay,
not on a championship caliber team.
Yeah,
no way.
You can go to a bottom feeder, get all the minutes you want.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's what he wants to do.
Have the inflated numbers. That's fine. But on any contending team, Terry Rozier, you know full well you're going to have to accept the role, and you just need to excel in that role.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. I.e., we have to give a shout out to Mr. Pat Connaughton, okay, a Massachusetts-made player, went to St. John's Prep, okay, that came out here and balled, okay, a part of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Except for game 1.
Except for game 1, okay, but game 3 and 4 in Boston.
Oh, he killed us.
Okay,
I talked so much shit about him. Game 1, they're giving all these minutes to Pat Connaughton. What a joke. And he came back. He made me eat my words.
You know, and really excelled, embraced his role, shined in his role, and is reaping the benefits of that. There's no reason why that couldn't have been Terry Rozier if he had that same attitude, but more so if Brad Stevens had put his guys in a position to be successful, which he didn't. That rotation was abysmal. Next up for me, and you touched on this, Danny Ainge, atrocious.
I agree.
And I'm starting, and I'm interested in what you hear on this. Okay, if the Celtics are to get Anthony Davis, is New Orleans going to give him away for free?
No, I think if they weren't planning on, I heard something during last year's trade deadline, whatever, that Tatum, Danny Ainge like. Tatum, we'll give you Tatum if you just wait till the end of the year. Because that's what they wanted.
Okay,
they wanted Tatum, and that was the stopper of the whole deal.
His value was
sky
high.
If you didn't take that LA, that was a pretty good, the Lakers package was pretty good.
Oh, it was overwhelming.
Yeah, but if they said no to that, then there had to be something else out there that they wanted.
Exactly.
And I think that was Danny Ainge promised Tatum, we'll give you all the picks, we'll give you this and that. And I still think that is very possible. I think that Zion coming there even helps. They were probably looking at like a 5-year rebuild. Now they're like, oh, we could get this done in 3 years. This could be great.
By the way, the Celtics right now are the odds-on favorite, 9-4, to land Anthony Davis, and the Lakers are the Lakers are 2. The Lakers are the second at 7-2. But we're going to get into the Lakers' dysfunction in a second. But I think that Boston is the primary destination. A, because we have the most assets that still have value.
Treasure trove, baby.
And B, that Danny has always expressed a willingness to try to go after Anthony Davis. Nonetheless, I felt that he showed no leadership, awful leadership, by starting off the year talking about bringing Anthony Davis in as if they were going to bring him in at the trade deadline. What does that do for your young, what does that do for your young and up-and-coming players, okay, if you're dangling them out there in possible trades to begin the year? If you're trying to build a championship culture, you need everyone buying in. And how's the guy going to buy? How did that work out for the Lakers? Okay?
How did it work out for us?
Yeah,
didn't work out at all.
And so Danny Ainge allowing Kyrie to begin the season. Okay, Kyrie, to me, I'm not going to say what I really want to say. I'm not going to take it there. But he's a bird of a particular feather. He's an eccentric guy.
He's crazy. There's no one else.
He's crazy. He walks to the beat of his own drum, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one day he's talking about, I want to be a Celtic for life. I'm gonna resign. He's at the guard.
I was at that.
You were in the building.
I was in the building.
You were in the
building. Sitting there. I want to come to Boston. Everyone's like, did I just hear this? And then it comes on ESPN. I was like, oh, I was there for that. That is sick.
In the building for that.
And I don't know. I don't think he's gonna come back. I think he made a liar of me. I don't know. But I don't think that anybody thought that it was going to go this poorly. And I don't think that he thought that he was going to go out in Boston like such a bitch. Honestly.
I heard if the shoe fits.
If the shoe, he talked all that junk. And what did we get out of it? He cracked out. He did nothing in the last 2 games. He did nothing. He looked terrible.
Okay.
He's an assassin. He didn't look like an assassin. He looked like a guy who is shooting one, for every 7 that he gets, which is it's terrible.
Celtics' performance in Game 5 and Game 4 justify that opinion.
Those aren't assassin numbers.
No, they're not.
He can be.
They're JV numbers is what they are.
Absolutely.
Okay, they're maybe
He
freshmen.
has the potential, and he has the skill set, but he didn't have that killer mentality that everyone talks about.
Okay. The disunity we saw on the court in Game 5 in particular was YMCA, 6th grade.
Oh, it was,
just
it was pathetic.
Just learning how to play basketball, for a storied franchise. I think a lot of people were wondering about the bitchery, if that's even a word.
The bitchery. You dropped 2 at home. Okay, that's pathetic. And then I thought maybe they'll show some sort of balls and go into Milwaukee and at least put up a fight. And they got crushed. It was abysmal, absolutely abysmal.
Okay, so that's how it concluded. To get there, Danny Ainge empowering Kyrie. 1 second he wants to stay in Boston. Okay, then immediately after that he starts the drumbeat for Anthony Davis to begin the season. Okay, we didn't have a culture established to begin with, and before you can even develop those connections with the Kyries and Gordon Hayward's coming back, with the Marcus Morris having an increased role, and how do you incorporate Smart and Rozier and Jalen and Tatum, where do they fit in this? Before we can even do that, Kyrie's talking about bringing Anthony Davis in, as if New Orleans is just going to give him away for free.
Yeah,
and you're not going to have to completely revamp your entire roster.
It's free lunch.
Danny Ainge, where are you in terms of... Would Bill Belichick allow for any... That's not. I'm not even going to go there because we already know what the answer is.
Right.
But any, franchise that has stability and a winning culture, okay, there's things that your players can say and there's things they can't say and they know it, okay? And for Danny Ainge to just allow Kyrie to quote-unquote do as he feels and for him to essentially, and this is throughout the course, I felt like the Celtics front office, handcuffed themselves, didn't want to step in any meaningful way to check Kyrie's, eccentricness. I'll get a dictionary.
You can't, he's no cap. You couldn't cap him. You couldn't, there was
no... Running and hiding, afraid of, and this is somebody that has expressed he's not committed to your franchise. It's one thing if you have a star player that's going to be there that has issues and problems. You look at the situation with DeMar DeRozan last year, who was eventually traded, but,
he was there for them, though.
Toronto had to get rid of a coach of the year that year. Dwayne Casey won coach of the year that year.
Which is insane.
Okay? And they got rid of him because of a disconnect with DeMar DeRozan, just to show that we're willing to, and then the Kawhi thing, and they had to make that deal. But a franchise can work with a sensitive star that's committed to that franchise. Okay? I don't understand why the Celtics hid, cowered, from Kyrie Irving, when his production on the court was not, what all of the hype surrounding it was not equal to that. And B, he wasn't even committed to Boston. There was no contract and there was no guarantee of a contract. Okay?
Right.
And for me, I say, again, now this is an example where you can use the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will cut anybody. Bill Belichick will cut his son, okay, his daughter, okay. We wouldn't want to give him the significant others. If you're not doing things the Patriots way, okay, you can go. And the last I checked, the Patriots went into Kansas City, okay, on the road with their MVP and all their offensive weapons and slapped them, okay, and then slapped the Rams, held them to 3 points, the most impressive Super Bowl in their whole dynasty, in my opinion, okay.
Wow.
With who? With who? Josh Gordon was here. He left with only Bill Belichick guys. Yeah. My guys, my system, okay? And that even if they didn't win the Super Bowl, that's how you have to compete.
I agree.
With everybody pulling in the right way. And Danny Ainge allowed this culture to just disintegrate, into a soap opera. And he's supposed to be this GM, extraordinaire.
Here's my thing with Danny. He's a great GM in terms of trades. He's done some things that are, look at what he got, how he got Kyrie Irving. He got him for Isaiah Thomas, who might never play again. I mean, he was tainted.
Played 3 games for Denver this year.
And I was at that game when they came to the Garden. They gave him the tribute, whatever. He looked terrible. He's not right. He's not right.
May not be
Danny
seeing
Ainge knew he was not right, and that's why I traded him.
And
he was
Kyrie.
genius. He's a genius in terms of trading. Yeah. However, being a GM, it's not just trades, and there's a whole other aspect of it.
Culture.
You're right. That culture building was not in his favor this year. I think that it didn't go the way they thought it was going to go, and that's that's the way it went. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. I think that if I'm blaming Danny Ainge, this is one of my main reasons. It comes to buyout time. Trade deadline's over. He looked at this roster, and he had an open roster space. They did the Jabari Bird thing.
Yep.
And he goes, nope, we're good. We don't need anything. We're good enough. We're fine with this team. We're not doing one thing. Meanwhile, if you look at our depth chart, you have 2 big men, really, that can play. Aaron Baines, who's hurt every other game, and Al Horford. Marcus Morris is kind of undersized to play that position. He's great, but you're playing a Milwaukee team that is so long. All of them are long, like all of them. And maybe Robert Williams is the other one, who's never going to see a playoff minute, really. You got Enes Kanter out there floating around. You got a bunch of big bodies that he decided that they don't need him. And they got absolutely exposed down low in that series.
I just checked. Was Nikola Mirotic, was he on the Bucks to start the season?
No, they got him for a pile of peanuts.
Okay.
I don't know how they got him.
Yeah, sure.
They got Brook Lopez for nothing. They got a bunch of players literally for no assets at all, the Bucks, which was great GMmanship by whoever their GM is, who I don't even know. But Danny Ainge sat there and said, no, we're fine the way we are. And everyone else went and made moves here, there, and the other thing. And it cost him. It cost him. He did nothing, and he stood pat. And look at us now.
Agree with that
I got
100%.
no self-esteem
And again, for me, with the Belichick model here in New England, I thought Brad Stevens could have done some things as well in terms of changing up his rotation, switching, maybe bring Gordon Hayward in the starting lineup, maybe bring Terry Rozier in the starting lineup, maybe just to mix things up so it's not the same thing over and over
Very
again.
lackadaisical approach.
It's like, game
especially
5.
in that series.
It's game 5. You got a heavyweight boxer just stumbling out, for round 14, and he's clearly wobbly, and, there's no correction, his trainer doesn't, either. I just felt like you could have, the Celtics still had pieces on their roster they could have mixed and matched.
I agree 100%.
Just to.
And I noticed that.
Just to inspire, just to get a charge instead of the same.
You have the
thing
same players in for ever, to the point where
the same disjointed rotation. Where what's the difference? Why don't you? And for me, I would bench. Again, with Kyrie, what disappointed me the most is he became really a duplicate of Carmelo Anthony in terms of the ball dominance, in terms of the volume shooting, and in terms of the poor defending, and then just the overall bad attitude, And that's the reason that Carmelo Anthony, for all his ability, is not an NBA roster, okay? Because first of all, this whole isolation basketball, that day is done,
it's done.
Dead, over. Okay, it's about space, pace, ball movement, continuity. The Mike D'Antoni revolution, which the Golden State Warriors have perfected, is the way that basketball is played on every single level. So this whole Allen Iverson, I'm just going to give the ball to one guy and everybody clear out and let him jack up all these million shots. Now, I know what you're going to say with the whole Kawhi Leonard and his 39 shots that was one game, and the reason that took place is because Kyle Lowry cannot be found, and you have every single person on that team, talented guys, Marc Gasol, Spicy P, Serge Ibaka, okay, buying in, okay? And so, but the Toronto will not play that way, and they already lost game 1. If they can try to play that way against Milwaukee, it's not going to be successful for them. So we can throw that right out.
No.
That style does not work anywhere, okay? And so for Kyrie to adopt it and for the Celtics to okay it,
I don't think they had. I think that they weren't okay with it, and he's just out there doing it anyways because there's no way. Brad Stevens, I've seen him do some. He is a genius.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
There's no way that he had all these plays written up for this and that, and they went the way they went. Kyrie is just. I don't know. I don't know. That's the motto of all Celtics fans this year. I don't know.
And as we conclude, if you did have Danny Ainge's ear, as you should, okay, because now you're in the building, okay, a true fan, okay, what direction would you take the team going forward? This is a big debate. A lot of people, some people are saying we need to bring Kyrie back. You need stars. You can't win without stars. A lot of other people like myself are saying he can get himself gone. You cannot win with that type of a leader. How should the Celtics and what should be their priorities? Wick Grossbeck, the Celtics owner, was doing some of the talk shows today, and he talked about, he said that they have some layups, they have some three-point shots, and they have some half-court shots, in terms of, what it's going to look like going forward, so that you can just tell that the even owner, but what would you do?
No, nobody knows. I think Danny, like I said, in terms of a GM, this is where he is good, in terms of trades, preparing for the season. Once it's in the season, clearly he lost his grip, whatever. But I think that he has a contingency plan for whether Kyrie stays or goes.
Indeed.
I'm sure that he knows what he's going to. Maybe he doesn't know.
Okay.
But if Kyrie walks, he walks. And I was defending Kyrie all year long. And, I mean, that performance at the end, he pretty much said, he almost kind of sold himself out of town. So if he comes back, I mean, as a Celtics fan, you're not going to get a better point guard probably. You're probably not going to get a better point guard. But will you get one that's maybe a little worse that'll fit better? I don't care about one player. I care about the end result. It's the end result that counts. I want to be at an NBA Finals game. I want to be at the one that they win.
Indeed.
However they do it, that's what I want. And I think that Danny, either way, whether he stays or goes, has a plan for either one. I think that you probably could see AD come because there's no way that they would have kept on to him. He's going to be traded. He still doesn't want to be there with Zion there. I don't know what you're going to see, but I think it's going to be a drastically different team than this team. Obviously, I hear people who know nothing about basketball say, get rid of Gordon Hayward. He's got a max contract from us.
Indeed.
No one's going to take him with his damaged goods.
Indeed.
I think he'll still be with a full summer under his belt of training.
Yep.
I think he'll be what we wanted him to be. I think that Jalen Brown can flourish.
Indeed.
I personally think Jason Tatum will be gone and Anthony Davis will be here.
Okay.
And that Anthony Davis coming here will attract another big name.
Sure.
Because that's what it all is now. You get one guy through trade or through whatever, and then through free agency, someone says, oh, I want to go there now.
That's right.
That's the way it is. So maybe Kevin Durant. I don't know.
Okay,
We were this close to getting him before he went to the Warriors, and now I think maybe they could win again. Even if they don't, he's got that chip on his shoulder from everyone saying, oh, you went to Golden State. It kind of tarnished his legacy a little bit in, true NBA fans' eyes. But I think he's got his 2 rings, maybe a third.
Indeed.
Maybe now he's like, okay, this team has the talent, and I think we could win it, and I could do it, and I could get the credit.
For you, versus what was already established before he went there.
Exactly.
Now, on the Anthony Davis narrative, there was talk midseason, obviously, when they tried to force a trade, with his representation, tried to force that trade, and his people, his inner circle, I believe it was his family, and it might have been his dad.
Yeah, it was his dad.
Came out and said that, the last place that he would want his son to go is Boston. Now, the NBA landscape has drastically changed since then, particularly with the overwhelming dysfunction of the LA Lakers. I'm interested in terms of, the Celtics now being the favorite and the Lakers now being the dark horse. I think a lot of that has to do with the Lakers. Their franchise is just an absolute freefall. I don't know when Frank Vogel won Coach of the Year. I don't know when he became.
Overrated.
I don't know when he became a championship coach.
I don't think he is.
I don't know when you needed, to have one coach, but then another coach who's an assistant, who's basically the head coach in one organization. I don't know when that ever worked out. But how does, the Lakers? I think the Lakers' dysfunction personally gives the Celtics a much greater chance of being the best viable option for Anthony Davis. But I'm interested, which if this, when his representation comes out and says we do not want to go to Boston.
I don't think they'll do that. I think
how does that now, even if Danny Ainge now moves all these assets to get Anthony Davis, what I'm really concerned about is if that's how he really feels, then will he resign?
They wouldn't. He's not going to trade all that unless he signs
an extension.
For sure.
But Anthony Davis has 1 year. He has 1 year left on his current deal.
He wouldn't. He's not going to. If Tatum goes, and that's the only person that could go for. That's what they want, and that's if he ships Tatum out. There's no way they're going to do the Kyrie thing all over again and take a guy on a one. I mean, you're talking about Tatum's like one of the best assets in the NBA.
Okay.
You got Kyrie Irving on a 1 year deal, whatever, for literally a pile of nothing.
A pile of nothing, indeed.
So I think that there's no way if he does come to Boston, it's with a 3 to 4 year deal. There's no, or whatever. There's no two ways about it.
Sure, and that's the obstacle that I believe people are not factoring in. That he has said, Boston's not my top choice. Again, he is represented by Rich Paul.
Yeah, times change though.
It's been a whole. Rich Paul happens to be a close friend of of LeBron James. That's still true. And the other thing about a Rich Paul client is that, and what we've seen for better and worse, and the reason that the narrative in the NBA is changing about clutch sports is, they demand that it's their way. Okay, so that has been successful. Was successful with LeBron in Cleveland. It has not been as successful with LeBron in LA and with Anthony Davis in New Orleans. But again, if Anthony Davis under Rich Paul's leadership comes to Boston, it has to be their way. So if you thought that Kyrie was problematic, Danny, and you're thinking about bringing in AD and then putting him with Kyrie, with Rich Paul, and that element, that's what I see as, a couple of red flags. And, people are saying, this is, you can't win, you have to have stars. You can't win with quote-unquote cute little teams. And I vehemently disagree with that narrative. I look at teams like, I'm a huge fan of the Utah Jazz. People say, oh, well, the Utah Jazz never won anything. The Utah Jazz consistently are a 4 or a 5 seed in the West. They win series in the West. They lost an all-star in Gordon Hayward and got better. Okay, challenged Houston last year with all those, and it rallies the fans. Even if they're not winning championships, the way that they play, the way they compete, their fan base is happy, and, they're still positive and moving forward. There's things to look forward to because they try and they compete, okay? And then you look at what Toronto is doing. It depends on what kind of star do you have. For me, Philadelphia has 4 All-Stars, okay?
Yeah, but they have no team. They have no bench.
Exactly.
They traded everything for that.
Sure.
Terrible.
Sure.
Terrible.
And Toronto has
so
1
stupid.
All-Stars and 11 other guys pulling in the right direction, okay? And what happened in that series, okay? On paper, Philadelphia should have crushed them, okay, with Jimmy Butler,
So overrated,
Ben
though.
Simmons,
So overrated.
Joel Embiid,
They have no bench. No
and
bench.
Tobias. Okay, so they have no bench. I mean, I tend to think, you got the kid. All right, their bench is weak.
It's not bad, but
I
in
like the
terms
kid
of,
from Arizona. I think J.J. Redick starts, so he's not
Oh,
part of it.
I like J.J. Redick. Mike
so-
Scott is good. Their bench isn't terrible, but they shipped everything away in terms of at least the Celtics, they didn't give up any of their assets. They still have a big treasure trove of stuff. Philly and Toronto put it all on the table. And I don't know if either of them, I mean, Philly obviously isn't there out, but Toronto, it remains to be seen if they can even get through Milwaukee. But they put all their cards on the table. The Celtics didn't do that. They still have plenty of assets, young players, picks, whatever.
But my point was in terms of winning and needing to have stars. Philly has 4 stars. Toronto has allegedly 1, even though they have some emerging stars, particularly Spicy P. And Toronto won that series. Whereas on paper, if you look at Philadelphia's starting lineup, you would say NBA championship. Okay, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler,
You got Embiid who
Ben
has
Simmons, Tobias
he's got a
Harris,
stomach ache and can't play.
and Joel Embiid. Okay, that's 4 All-Stars.
Yeah, on paper it does look good, but
they should win, but they didn't.
Same thing with the Celtics. I mean, you look at that team on paper,
Okay,
great,
so,
but it's not played on paper,
so-
and we learned that this year. It was a lot different. This year was good for the NBA, I think, because
I think, hopefully the ratings for the finals are good. The NBA always gets concerned, in terms of having major markets in the finals. When you look at the possible NBA finals, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors, people seem to have forgotten that the Golden State Warriors are a small market because they've been this dynasty.
Yeah.
And so, they are must-see TV even though they're not in a major market. But I think it'd be great if Milwaukee made it to an NBA finals, have, the MVP or first runner-up, and they just, again, 2 small market teams. And
I think it's good for the NBA.
Hold on. I think the last 14, they're all small market teams.
yeah.
Portland, Golden State, Toronto, and Milwaukee. I think that's encouraging. You don't necessarily, you can win.
Absolutely.
And proving that. Okay, we're going to switch over to the NBA draft. Talked a little bit about the Celtics. Talked a little bit about free agency, and so the draft took place earlier this week. Obviously, a lot of fanfare based on one Mr. Zion Williamson and his potential. I have to ask, what are your thoughts on Zion Williamson? Is he a generational player in the mold of a Kobe Bryant, of a Tim Duncan, of a LeBron James? There's a difference between somebody being an all-star, and when you say generational, okay, that's what you're talking about. You're not only talking about first ballot Hall of Famer, but you're talking about 4, 5 championships, MVPs. Is Zion Williamson that good?
He has the potential to be, for sure. I mean, we're going to find out. Only time will tell. I mean, this is a shooter's league, and he can't really shoot.
Okay.
So he is an absolute physical freak of nature.
Okay.
He's a specimen. But, like I said, I mean, it's a shooter's league. Maybe he can figure out how to shoot, maybe he can't. I mean, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, those are like gigantic shooters. So I don't know if he's going to be that, but, I mean, we'll find out. He's a beast. He's a freak, but I don't think so. My buddy Chris, Afro Man, Pizza One.
Yeah.
He's saying,
Indeed.
I could see him being an Anthony Bennett, and
Ooh.
I'm not saying that he will or won't, but I could see it.
Oh, Anthony Bennett.
I mean, Anthony Bennett was supposed to be the same thing. A guy who couldn't shoot. They're kind of a little similar. I don't know.
Shout out to Dan Gilbert, Cleveland Cavaliers, Anthony Bennett.
I don't know.
Pick.
I think that he
At a
absolutely has the
UNLV.
potential to be good, but he's got he's got the weirdest body type. I don't know. We'll see it.
He's about 6'6.5", 6'7", 280 pounds, 18 years old.
But this ain't college. He was manhandling those college boys, but this ain't college. And I don't know. Only time will tell. But personally, I think that if I had to take a side of will he be a generational player or a bust, I'm going to lean more towards the side of bust, personally.
Okay, yes. So great points there, Anthony Bennett. I love that reference. The thing for me that's most important about Zion Williamson, it has nothing to do with his athleticism, even though that's what jumps off the page, is this is a junkyard dog. Okay, so he's a hard worker. Okay, this is not, one of these, freak of nature athletes, that is, taking selfies as they're maybe, catching touchdown passes or, that is all about them. What I see in Zion Williamson that impresses me most is a hunger for the game.
Yeah.
Okay, which you don't owe, and so that's the number one reason why I think he's going to be successful in NBA. Okay, because he'll be coachable, and he has the desire, to be great, and doesn't believe like we see. Maybe this is just, whether my day versus your day, but you see entitlement, with these number one can't miss prospects, this sense of entitlement that ultimately dooms them, okay, because they don't have the understanding of the game and they don't have, the recognition of how hard they're going to have to work. People talk LeBron James spending $2, $3, $4 million just on his strength and conditioning, diet, and his support staff. Whatever you want to say about LeBron's, knock on wood, this man's been healthy for 17 years.
Yeah, which is
no
insane.
long-term injuries.
Literally insane.
His durability, and that has to do with his love, his appreciation, his passion for the game. Okay, shout out to Bronny Jr. Okay, he's doing his thing, coming up through the ranks on the EYBL circuit, and LeBron is at all those games cheering him on. Okay, so that is something that he doesn't get enough credit for, and he cares about basketball. Okay, top to bottom. It's not just about all the luxury that goes along with it. He cares about the particulars of the game and continuing to grow that constant evolution. And I think Zion Williamson has some of those trademarks, so that's where something strongly for me in his favor. Secondly, people talk about your college is different than the NBA. That's true, but the transition to college from high school for a big man, shout out my man Darby Lyons in the building. Want to give him a shout out. Good to see you. Award-winning director, and put me on to the Cape Cod Media Center. Yep. So great place. Become a member. It's a great place, great people, all that stuff. Back to Zion Williamson. Second point. It's tougher for big men to go into college from high school than it is for guards. And what we saw from Zion Williamson this year is he was manhandling bigs. Okay, whatever the Syracuse game, down the stretch, Zion Williams in there with 22, 23-year-old juniors and seniors as a true 18-year-old. Okay, and he's moving some furniture around.
Oh yeah.
Okay, he's coming through the lane, and people are moving the other direction.
Yeah.
And he's getting those rebounds, he's getting those putbacks, getting those blocks. Active defender. So those are the things about his game where it says to me that he's now. Again, we talked about LeBron James. What's going to be the key for Zion Williamson is he's going to have to take care of his body. That 280, that's going to have to be 265.
That frame.
Because in this NBA, you have to give a shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers in terms of how they handle Joel Embiid. More teams need to do this. The jury is out. Look what happened to Porzingis.
Look what they did to Ben Simmons.
your stars, particularly your big guys, these guys that are carrying all this weight on their knees, they cannot play 82 games at this frantic pace that we have in the NBA. They have to be rested. So what does this have to do with Zion Williamson? Either he has to cut weight or he's going to be on the Joel Embiid plan. Okay, because over time, him sprinting up and down with guys like me who look like a gazelle, okay, who he walks in a room, you know, I fall, you know, Zion Williamson walks in the room, I'm falling back, you know, in terms of just the wind, you know, you know, he walks by me on the street, you know, I'm tumbling like tumbleweed, okay, you know, but for him, you know, he's going to, you know, and with that, again, if you're 280 at 18 and your body has, with that metabolism, when he gets to be 25, 30, you know, he has that Charles Barkley frame. Whereas he's going to be a big person unless he really, really, really keeps himself in check. That's just how his body is going to mature for me.
It's going to be interesting.
You know, so he's going to have the professionalism, which you know, I see that he wants to work to really keep himself. You look at guys like a Kevin Love, who people forget came in the league, you know, and it was kind of, you know, overweight a little bit, you know, but how his professionalism, you know, you look at Kevin Love now, he looks like a marathon runner, you know, and that has to do with all these other things that go into it. So that's what I see with Zion that I like, that I appreciate, and where I think he's going to be successful. And there's been some reports, people saying that, oh, he's going to go back to Duke because you don't want to go to Pelicans. We have to get rid of that nonsense. That's been thrown out. That's been thrown out by many reputable sources. His camp has said that he is excited and looking forward to the NBA draft. He has no problem with going to the Pelicans. He does hail from the great state of South Carolina. Excuse me, he's from South Kakalaki. Okay, so being in the South, you know, he will embrace that. You know, New Orleans, great town. You know, his family will be close, and that'll be a great opportunity. Now, what I want to add to that is what I'm hoping that New Orleans does. What I'm really hoping that they do. Okay, David Griffin, if you're listening, if you happen to tune in the show, you know, it's all right if you're not, but if you are, okay,
he is.
What I want to see happen is AD already said he wants out, so they're going to have some assets and pieces to move. They're going to revamp their roster. What we need to see happen is Zion and RJ back together in New Orleans, okay, to build that team together, okay? I'd like to see these two guys, you know, obviously they have the connection, did great at Duke. They would stay if the money, you know, and NCAA is actually talking about compensating players. We might not be able to get to that this show, but, you know, anyway, I would love to see the Pelicans, with all these moves that they're going to have the opportunity to make, find a way to get Zion and RJ together. Do you remember when the Orlando Magic got the #1 pick 2 years in a row? I believe it's a 30 for 30 Magic moment.
Oh, yeah.
And 1 year, that #1 pick was clearly Shaquille O'Neal. Okay, and then the next year, via a sign and trade, Orlando Magic drafted Chris Webber, but then traded him for Anthony Hardaway. Okay, and that dynamic duo went to the NBA Finals 2 years later, I believe. Okay, two young stars growing together.
Penny.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway. That's it.
Anthony.
That's Anthony. Oh, shout out.
Everybody knows.
Anthony Penny. You know, he's doing a great job, by the way, at Memphis. Has a great recruiting class coming in.
He's the new king recruiter.
King recruiter. So we're looking forward to that. But that's what I would love to see in terms of this NBA draft for the Pelicans. So wonderful. Now, next up, Drew, how does the NBA draft impact the Boston Celtics?
I think, I don't know, the way that all the chips fell, it could have been better, but it could be worse. I mean, they have still 3 first-round picks, which is great.
To that point, yes, they're picking at 14, 20, and 22.
14, 20, and 22.
Okay.
I mean, one could have fallen in the lottery, which would have been dope, but one of them got pushed on until next year, which is great. You know, it's like they don't really need them anyways. I personally think they're going to be put in a package and shipped out, so I don't think.
Okay,
I think
it's going to be a part of a further deal.
I think so. I mean, they don't really need them. They don't need to get any younger. What they need to do is get some established players. They need a 3-point shooter. I'm talking about like a marksman,
Kyle
like
Korver,
a guy that they haven't had since Ray Allen.
Yep.
A guy like JJ Redick.
Yep.
They don't have anyone that can just pick and pop. They don't have any. They haven't had it forever. They have guys that can hit the 3,
that's a good point,
but they also have guys that are wide open that will miss the same 3. So it's like they need to work on that. Al Horford said he's going to come and maybe sign a team-friendly deal, which would be great.
Al?
I think that it helps. I think that the Celtics, it's good, but it could have been better. But I don't think it's bad. I think that 3 first-round picks is great. I think Danny Ainge is a master of taking what he's got and turning it into what he thinks the team needs. So.
Indeed. Your thoughts, if the Knicks got the #1 pick, that, you know, they clearly would have taken Zion. The thinking was that would have made the Knicks a much more attractive destination for Mr. Durant, and then by correlation, that would have made the Knicks a more attractive destination for Mr. Irving. Okay, so does the Knicks not getting Zion, does that mean that there's a greater likelihood of Kyrie being receptive to staying?
I think that whether that happened or not, he was either going to go there or not go there. I thought all the New York mumbo-jumbo was a bunch of nonsense.
Mumbo-jumbo.
Mumbo-jumbo. Maybe it's not, but, I mean, all right, say that they did get Durant and Kyrie, and even Zion, sure.
Yep.
The rest of that team, they don't have any. How is that going to be a contender? Why would Kyrie wants to leave to go? Even him and Durant, that's not enough for. I just look at that roster. It's all right.
In the East?
In the East got a lot better. I mean, we'll see. This is going to be a very wild offseason. There's a lot of moving pieces because Philly put all their chips in. Yep. Toronto put all their chips in. Yep. Milwaukee's not going to be going away. But the Celtics with their assets, they're not going to be going away either. What they're going to do remains to be seen. But they still have a big old pile of stuff. And it's going to be a very fun offseason. It's going to be one of the most interesting free agencies in a while.
Okay, so do the Celtics move forward? Do they tread water, or do they move back? Because the Celtics had a whole bunch of assets and talent this year, and
we still went to the second round, and we got bounced, whatever. But the whole reason that they are under the microscope as being a giant disappointment is because of the potential of what could have been, and we're in Titletown. We make the playoffs as a 4 seed, and everyone's disappointed. Most franchises and teams, if they make the playoffs at all, they're pleased. We're in Boston. If it's not a championship, it's not good enough. I think that they'll absolutely be in the realm of possibly winning a championship, at least being in the mix. They're going to be in the mix. That's all I know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they're going to be in the mix. But after, I feel like you need to make a decisive decision one way or the other. Again, are you going to go the star route and try to go all in on Anthony Davis, even though there's all of these impediments, and just try to get Anthony Davis and Kyrie together, almost similar to the big three in 08, and then just just try to get those two together, throw in a piecemeal roster around them, that's going to that they can hopefully motivate and inspire the same way that Kevin Durant, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen motivated, inspired the Kendrick Perkins, the Rajon Rondos, the Leon Poes of the world, and that team just came together in that 1 year, won NBA championship? Or, do you say, we're done stargazing and star chasing? We have players that have the potential to definitely be all-stars in the Eastern Conference in terms of Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We have Gordon Hayward, who can get back to form. Remember, he was an all-star in the West, okay, and a force of nature, and get his psyche, right, and get him, back to attacking the basket and going to the rim like he used to. We have a guy like a Marcus Smart, signed, committed, a junkyard dog. We have an Al Horford, team-oriented, who now, again, will get more minutes, more opportunity, under this new format. You're going to have some cap space because Marcus Morris probably isn't going to be staying with Kyrie Irving hitting the road. You still have great veterans like an Aaron Baines, like a Dave Tice. You have up-and-coming players, who could be a possible DeAndre Jordan parallel in terms of the Time Lord.
I think he's got his potential's through the roof, but I think they didn't play him this year for a reason. They didn't want to exploit his weaknesses too much. He's young. He's so young. But he's got bounce.
Yeah, but he's got bounce. 6'11".
He's going to be
7'3", 7'4" wingspan.
He needs to work on his intangibles and whatnot. And I think I think that AD will be in Boston. I think that Tatum. I think they are, even with his little step back this year, I think they're enamored by him. I think that they are going to take him. They're going to take Robert Williams. They're going to take all the picks, including the 3 we have, plus next year's.
Okay.
And I think Danny Ainge, he's been stockpiling this for so long. He's made moves, but he hasn't put all the chips in.
Pushed it all in the middle.
think he finally, because, this is all still stemming from that Nets trade.
Indeed.
This is still he's been picking around and doing this and that, but he hasn't gone all in.
Yep.
The treasure trove is...
It's overflowing.
It's overflowing,
right
but...
now.
It was one of those treasure troves that it kept, even if he does this and that and takes one thing out, something else is going to fall in.
That's right.
It's not growing anymore. the stuff is it's either going to mature and he's going to get something, or he's got to spend the money before it. You know what I mean?
It depreciates.
Exactly. And I think that this he's got to piss or get off the pot. That's it.
And so you say AD is the way to go.
I think
to get
I still think it's that type of league, and I still think that one guy. I mean, he's like he's a generational talent.
Generational talent for
but
sure.
I think that we have the talent around him. Even getting rid of some of our
pieces,
talent, that we have enough that we could easily put him in the middle, and boom, it's a brand new look.
He and Kyrie, they allegedly they get along. They're friends.
I'm talking even if Kyrie doesn't.
All right, okay.
But
but
if he does,
Kyrie
then
stays,
there you go.
You're going to be getting the Kyrie that we remember.
Right, but
the Kyrie that we saw at the start of last season, after when the Celtics won 16 straight games.
Right.
After the tragic injury.
Even if Kyrie does go and they do the trade for AD and he comes in, I think they'll have enough money to go and get a very serviceable point guard. And plus, I mean, you have Marcus Smart, as long as he doesn't go to New Orleans in the deal. They got so much room to work with that it's the sky's the limit, honestly.
Indeed. Interesting wrinkle is that if the Celtics are better off signing and trading Kyrie, that would give them more cap flexibility.
You could see that
than if Kyrie just actually walked, because the Celtics are close to, or if not in the luxury tax, the Celtics would not have as much cap space if he just walked versus them signing him, giving him the most money he can get, and then trading him off. So that's another kind of that Danny Ainge has to. Whereas I would have thought that if you just let him go, then you'll have all that money. But that's not the way that.
Right. It's very, very interesting, but it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy to see what they do. But I'd be very shocked if you don't see, not only from the Celtics, but just I feel like this free agency is just gonna be splash. It's gonna be a lot of crazy stuff going on.
NBA has perfected this model. There really is no off season, and the free agency speculation sometimes is as exciting, if not more exciting, than the regular season. That's a lot of the reason why the NBA is a cash cow, and other leagues are trying to emulate, what they're doing. So in conclusion, and in concluding the sports hoops talk, would be remiss. Who do you have winning it all
this year?
Yes.
I think the Warriors win one more, and then I think that everyone tries and goes and gets theirs. I think Durant goes out and does whatever he does to dispel the notions of him joining a super team already. I think he wants to go and he wants to get a couple of rings and be the man. Not in terms of like what Kyrie was saying, whatever, but in terms of he wants to dispel that whole notion of the super team thing. And if he finishes his career with 5 rings and 2 of them were from another team, that dispels it right there. As long as he did it, somewhat his way, didn't join a super team. I think Clay would probably bounce too. I think they get one more, even though Durant seems like he's not really ready to come back, but who's gonna? I don't think Portland has what it takes, and Milwaukee could, but I don't think they're quite ready. I think Golden State gets one more, and then that dynasty is finally in,
breaks up?
Not necessarily breaks up, but it's not going to be as super teamy as it is.
That's interesting because if KD does leave, that would be additional salary cap money, the way that they are, where Golden State is under the cap, for them to either pay more, which they will have to take care of Clay and Draymond, but also bring in another, up-and-coming player, maybe like a Chris Middleton type of a player, or a Brogdon, to kind of go along with that core that they have and move forward. Very proud, frankly, and intrigued by their response to KD's injury and how they've surged forward in terms of establishing and making people remember that, again, we won 73 games, before he got here, and that mojo is still very much in effect. Houston, slept on that, and was smacked out of the playoffs. And Portland did the same thing, unfortunately, in Game 1, and they're looking like if they don't come through, if they don't come through tonight, they're looking at getting swept out of the playoffs themselves. So tip my hat to Golden State and their core guys for making that clear. For me, I picked Milwaukee to start the playoffs. I'm going to stick with that pick.
Nice.
I am a big fan of Coach Bud, taking base on the same team that they had last year. Their culture is a selfless culture, where and they have a selfless superstar. Jeff Van Gundy, always says the most important relationship on any team is between the coach and the best player. And when your best player is coachable and is team-oriented, that just saturates your entire organization. And you are a blue-collar, hard-working, junkyard dog of a team, which I love. Who's going to fight and who's not going to beat themselves. Now, obviously, with Kevin Durant, and there is some murmurs about Boogie Cousins possibly coming back. Obviously, Golden State is better than them. But Milwaukee will have home court advantage. They are united, and I would just like to see them, push Golden State to the brink. And Golden State's beatable. Houston had them down 3-2, up double digits in Game 6 and Game 7. So they can be beat, and I'd like to see Milwaukee have a chance to do that. That's who my pick is. But obviously, if I had to, bet the family farm, it would be the Golden State Warriors. A couple concluding topics, folks. Want to give a shout out to the Boston Bruins, up 3-0 on the verge of going to the Stanley Cup championship out of nowhere. We need to get, and we're looking to get some hockey people onto the show, so I can't go too in-depth with the hockey talk. But I know the Bruins are hot. And I know in hockey, the playoffs and the regular season are two completely different seasons. That an 8th seed can go to the Stanley Cup like nothing, and having a hot goaltender and a team pulling in the right direction at this time of the year can, will, and does equal Stanley Cup championships. And so we're pulling for the Bruins to see that.
See if they can get it done tonight.
To see that happen. Red Sox have stabilized themselves after a slow start.
Yeah.
Okay, and Chris Sale, I believe he had about 17 Ks the other night.
17 Ks and they still
17
lost.
Ks, 7 out of 8 first batters went down. Okay, so they're hitting their stride, after their historic season last year. We like to see that. Looking forward to maybe going to some of those games as the weather gets nicer.
Oh, yeah.
The Patriots are the Patriots. They're not making too much noise. They're not too many flashy.
They never do.
But again, in late January and February,
I'm sure we'll see them there.
We're always looking at them, and they're always competing.
Do we still have Tom Brady?
I think we do. We do.
I think we'll be. Bill Belichick, we still got Bill? I'll see you in February.
I think Brady's 42. He said 45.
Yeah,
so we got, on his clock, he has 3 or 4 more years.
I think we got 3 more Super Bowls.
Three, 4 more Super Bowls. They might be able to draft and groom the next Brady, and still win.
Maybe they already did. Because that guy that they drafted in the 4th round or whatever, looks like he could,
They can do the same thing that the Giants are doing while winning Super Bowls.
Right.
And not being bottom feeders. So that's all very exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it. I want to thank you. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe as you feel the need. I am your host, the Cape Cod Kid. We want to give a special thanks to my main man, Drew Popolo. Okay? Drew Pops in the building. Okay? And we will see you again here, Cape Cod Media Center, the next time. Thanks a lot, folks.
Yes, we piece of souls do sedate ourselves. Just a number of this pain we feel. Yes, at times we do hate ourselves, but each day we try to retake ourselves. So yes, we piece of souls do sedate ourselves. Just a number of this pain we feel. Yes, at times we do hate ourselves, but each day we try to embrace ourselves. Yeah.